Hey, welcome. We're about to dive into something that really gets at a fundamental truth about wealth. See, it's not really about how much money you earn. It's about which money game you're actually playing.
All right, so let's just get right to it with the big question, right? Why do billionaires seem to be playing a completely different money game than pretty much everyone else? And trust me, the answer is probably not what you're thinking.
Okay, so it really all comes down to this one simple idea. There are two totally different money games being played out there, and the secret really isn't about working harder, it's about understanding which game you're in and then figuring out how to play it. And this slide, wow, this really lays out the two rule books perfectly. On one side, you've got what we'll call the income game. This is where most people are. You're focused on your active salary, your method is trying to put away small savings, and the big goal is, maybe buy some stocks. But then there's the ownership game. And everything's different. The focus, it's on passive assets. The method is all about managing these big capital flows. And the goal, it's not just buying a few shares, it's owning the entire company.
And that right there, that is the absolute core difference. Just think about it for a second. One approach is you trading your time for money. The other? Well, the other is owning the very engines that generate money in the first place.
So, the natural question is, how do you even begin to play that second game? Well, it all starts with a pretty radical shift in your mindset. It's about making a conscious choice to move your focus from just earning an income to strategically acquiring assets.
All right, let's just get a really clear definition here, because this word is key. An asset isn't just something you own. It's something you own that actively puts money back into your pocket. We're not talking about your car or your TV here. Nope, we're talking about things like a business, an investment fund, maybe even intellectual property that pays you royalties. Basically, it works for you, so you don't have to.
You can actually break this mindset shift down into three pretty deliberate steps. So first, you change your main focus from your next paycheck to your next asset. Simple, right? Second, you start to prioritize ownership, getting equity in a company way more than just a high salary. And third, you really start to think like a strategist, always asking, what's the best way to deploy my money? And that's a little something called capital allocation.
Yeah, look, a high salary is great, don't get me wrong, but it's just raw material, right? The real magic, the secret sauce, is in how you deploy that money. Does it just go towards paying for stuff, or does it go towards buying assets that are going to generate even more money? Honestly, that's the billion-dollar question.
So, how does this mindset actually build into a real system? Let's get into the mechanics of it, how billionaires actually put their money to work, and on a massive scale.
So we mentioned this term before, capital allocation, and here it is again because it's that important. This is the central engine of the ownership game. It's not just investing. It's this high-level, strategic process of deciding exactly where and how to put your money to work to get the absolute highest possible return over the long term.
Now, for someone who's playing the income game, a typical portfolio is going to be heavily dependent on their active work. I mean, the vast majority, maybe 85%, it's all coming from their salary and what they can manage to save. And maybe, just maybe, a tiny slice, like 15%, might be in some basic stocks. But a billionaire's portfolio? Oh, that is a completely different animal. Look at this. Almost half of it is in private businesses. Then you've got these huge chunks in public stocks, investment funds, real assets. What's the key difference? Almost none of it depends on a salary. It's a whole diversified system built entirely on ownership.
And this is where the story gets really dramatic. Because this fundamental difference in how the money is allocated doesn't just create a little gap in wealth. No way. It creates a massive chasm that just gets wider and wider exponentially over time.
You see, the income-focused portfolio, it grows, sure, but in a very predictable straight line. But the ownership portfolio, that thing experiences exponential growth. It's a feedback loop. Its assets generate returns. Those returns are then reallocated to buy more assets, which then, of course, make even more money. And that, my friends, is the incredible, almost magical power of compounding.
All right, so let's bring this all home. Let's really distill it down to the most important takeaway. What is the one fundamental difference that we absolutely need to grasp from all this?
Okay, here are the core concepts, the big ideas. First, you've got to recognize that there are two games and really start thinking about how to play the ownership game. Second, you shift your main financial focus away from your salary and onto acquiring assets. Third, you have to understand that real lasting wealth is built through that strategic allocation of capital. And finally, you leverage that insane power of compounding by owning things that grow.
So you see, the real goal here isn't just to have a high income. I mean, that's nice. But the real goal is to build a self-sustaining system, a machine, really, where your assets are doing all the heavy lifting for you, just generating wealth around the clock.
And so that really just leaves us with one simple, but I think pretty powerful question to think about. When you look at your own financial strategy, your own mindset, which game are you playing?